Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Higher Self Hypnosis session. My name is Tracy Ventura, and I have the lovely Cammie here with us. She has agreed to allow her session to be put on YouTube, and I explained to her before we went on the camera, if there's anything super personal, she can just ask me to pause the recording. And then we will not have that be on public, in the public, but then we'll pick it right back up. So this is part one. I'm going to pretend the camera is not even on now. So this is the part, Cammie, where I get to learn all about you so that once you're under, I know which direction to take the questions, or kind of, just because we come up with a list of questions doesn't mean that I'm not going to feel led to take that same topic, but go slightly in a different way or ask further questions about it just based on the answers your higher self gives me. So if I don't know the background, it's hard to know which way to take the questions, obviously. So this is part one. Part two will be the actual hypnosis session after lunch today. So we'll get going and I will learn all about you and your life. So you can start where you're at right now and go back, or you can start when you were younger and then move forward to now. It's whatever you prefer. So you just fire away.
Okay. I guess I could start. I probably will go all over the place because I know myself. But I can start from where I am today. I think part of the things that I'm curious about is lack of energy and lack of drive. I've noticed that, I work for myself and what I do, I love, but I don't have any passion for life. It's a hard way to describe it, but
and I'm sorry, did you say wealth as in WEALTH?
Life.
Oh, life. I'm like, who doesn't have a passion for wealth? No, I'm just kidding.
And even that too, like there's, it feels like there's something that's in my way, right? Because, what I do for a living, really, it's supporting other people. Like, I love what I do and I don't have any energy. So I don't know if it's health or if it's mental. I feel like I don't really have the language for it. It's something that, like, I've been struggling with for a while. Before I started doing what I'm doing, which is about 13 years ago, I worked for other people. Okay. And I worked a lot. So, it wouldn't be abnormal for me to work 7 days a week, and complaining about it the whole time. But really, getting up and going, so on and so on. But I think even when I was a kid, like going to school was tough, right? Like I'd go, but I didn't have any energy. I didn't have any, like, nothing excited me. And all the things that do excite me, I only have a couple, like, I have a broad amount of things that I love, right? But I'm not one of those people that, what's the word? That lives and breathes the things that they love. You know what I mean? There might be some comparison in there, but I'm a last minute person, right? So if I have 16 hours before my next client, 20 minutes before my next client is when I'll go through their file, or else, whatever it is, like there's just something that has me, it almost feels like waste time. And the other part of that is it feels like there's, like I said a little bit before, like it feels like there's actually something in the way of the things I love. Like I just found out I love drawing, right? And I love the feeling of drawing, but to make myself draw, or to, allow myself to get into it, it's literally like climbing Mount Everest. It's so much work, right? Same with what I do. Like, I have the education, the wisdom, the intuition, and the connection to actually like really be almost like a global name in a sense. Like I can really help people in so many ways, and I won't. You know what I mean? I keep my life really small.
Mm.
It's almost like, thinking about, this is kind of my comfort zone, right? So I can touch back to childhood when my parents split. They're very, very toxic relationship, but they split and my mom left my brothers with my father and we moved across the country. And I think I hit a level of depression, which wasn't acknowledged or anything like that. So, and my mom worked 3 jobs, or, and she went out every night with her friends. And so I was alone a lot. And so I'd go to school, come home, and, find something in the fridge or whatever it was and lay down and watch TV instead of doing my homework, or instead of, whatever it was. So I still have that self-soothing way of being. So that kind of takes over and I'm always consciously pushing myself to go beyond that. But there is something about my energy. I have shifted it in the past month or two, where I've added more things to my life, so that I have to go do them. And that gives me more energy. If there's only one thing for me to do, I literally feel like a slug kind of thing, right? But I also know that there's so much more available for me that I'm not almost willing to take the chance for. There's like a fear or something. So that's one place. Like, I know there was tons of trauma in my life. I was hit by a car when I was 3.
Okay, hold on. Let's address these. Hold the pot, the
Yeah.
idea of getting hit by a car, because I've been taking really diligent notes and we have a ton of questions in here. So one of them I put down, I'm going to put it on my list of questions here. Oops, that wasn't it. Thought I copied and pasted it. Where is it? Why does she have a lack of energy? Is it something to do with her health or just her energy? I like the way you worded that one. And obviously, if it's a health issue, I'm going to follow that up really, really well. And we're going to get that worked on and healed. Something to do with hormones, question mark. Chemical imbalance, question mark. Emotional, question mark. Okay. Do you want to, because you said you have the wisdom and education to be a global name and can really help people in so many ways, and you won't. You keep yourself really small. That is your comfort zone. Do you want to be really big, or do you not want to be really big? Like, does that excite you to think about that, or not excite you?
Good question. It used to excite me. And I think I've just created a ton of disappointment in like lack of act. Like, I take action and then not take action. So let me just think. I don't really, for me, I don't care to be a global name, but for the impact, like I feel like I'm supposed to be.
Okay.
Right? Like I feel like there's like I'm here for something. Right? And so I feel like I'm supposed to access more people.
Okay. Okay. So do you want to ask a question like, is it in her soul plan to be bigger in her career and access more people? And is it in, is it in her soul plan to impact more people with the work that she does? And if yes, what is preventing her from doing that? What is the root issue? How about that? And then I'm going to go back to my notes here because there were questions in these notes here. She continuously, consciously pushes herself to go beyond and has shifted in the past month or two by adding more things to her life. Okay. Does it go back to her in childhood spending so much time alone? Does that have anything to do with it? Does it have anything to do with her spending so much time alone as a child? Okay, I think we got the questions for that to take me on that path. So it'll end up being a lot more questions about that for sure. Because I know that's one of the main things you wanted to uncover here in this session. So we'll make sure that we delve really deep into that one and get that cleared up. Okay, so you were starting to tell me about you got hit by a car when you were, so how old were your parents? How old were you when your parents divorced or split?
11.
Okay, she was 11 when her parents split. But at 3, you got hit by a car, you said?
Yeah, I got hit by a car when I was 3, and I was in the hospital for about 6 months.
Oh my gosh. So you had a lot of damage.
I did. I had lots of reconstructive surgery on my foot and so on and so on. And so I think I was back and forth, but in the hospital for about 6 months or so. So I imagine that separation was pretty intense. I almost have this feeling of being terrified, like being, in a hospital bed at 3 years old in you know what I mean, all by myself, without my parents or anybody else around that I actually knew. Right. And though my parents apparently came to see me every day, but I think it's the nighttime that freaked me out.
Okay, so we want to see if there's any trauma there that we can pull.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we can do some timeline healing too. Do you know what that is, or should I
Yep.
tell you? Okay.
No, I'm a hypnotherapist, so I do.
That's right. That's
Yes.
right. Okay, so what do we want to ask for if there's trauma there, which it sounds like there very well may be, right? Sorry, I gotta turn my little heater on. What kind of timeline healing? What do you want? Do you want your higher self to give you like a jewel or something like that to hold in your heart to comfort you and keep you comforted while you're there alone, that just kind of radiates out that comfort and love that you were missing from the external to have it be from the inside?
Yeah, that would make sense. That would be nice. I feel like that's actually been the case. Like that was actually the piece that created all of that, like everything else that happened in my life, with this aloneness and not having support and not knowing how to be supported, and the self-doubt and just lack of understanding about why, like the aloneness.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So tell me if you want any of these questions. Tell me if you want me to word it differently, because it's your session. So here's the way I'll word it, and tell me if you want me to change anything. So, I've done similar things to this question. So, and the higher selves always seem to love this. So would it benefit her to have you go back to that time when she was in the hospital and give her a jewel, parentheses, you pick the color, and implant it in her heart so that it can radiate out unconditional love, support, comfort, and light to carry with her for her whole life, since she was not receiving that from her external environment. And then once done, how will this impact her life now that that jewel has been given to her as that little girl? Sound good?
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. I love timeline healing. It's amazing. Like it
It's
actually
so
helped me get, it is, it actually helped me get over the last bit of neglect and trauma feelings I had, and just negative thoughts I always had about my birth mother. And so it helped me get over that. And now when I think about her, and she raised me, so I say birth mother, but she raised me, but versus my stepmother. But it helps me now. Whenever I think about her, like the first things that pop in my mind are all these good things that she did for me. And that never used to be the case. It was always the bad that I thought about first.
right.
So I love timeline healing.
Totally. You said the word neglect, and that was a theme in my
Ah,
like neglect is actually the baseline of my existence. Because when I was hit by a car, I was outside playing with my cousin, and my parents were in the house watching a movie. So there's also a bit of like, I don't have anything on them for that. And there's neglect there. And my whole life, they were busy with themselves. Right. Including after my mom, including like they were very abusive to each other. And as I was with my mom for the rest of my life, I was neglected all the time. I just had to handle it. And there was no way to, like, even when I got my period, that wasn't the person that I could go to and have that conversation. My mom was the type of woman who just believed that if she fed me and put clothes on me, that's all that she needed to do as a mother, right? So no compassion, no connection, just, lots of projection still to this day. She's very untrustworthy to me. I can't rely on her well, it's not rely on her, but I can't trust her with me. It actually I've done a lot of work around this, like tons. And it doesn't change the betrayal that she like continues to do.
Do you have other people in your life also who have played out the role of betraying you also in addition to your mom? So is that a theme also, neglect and betrayal, or was it just mom with betrayal, if you think back on it?
My dad was I don't really remember, but because my dad's passed, but he was never around because we were always on the other side of the country. Like I'd kind of see him here and there. I recreated that situation in my life for sure. Like I created it with the men I was with. There was like, and I also became my mother in lots of ways, very critical, very judgmental, very, no self-awareness about who I was being. I was just very arrogant about who people should be. And I didn't have any consciousness around the impact that I was. So I brought into my life how my mother was with men and with people. Like, my mother will walk up to me like, you need to fix those wrinkles. Oh my God. Or, like she's very, very intense that way. Like when I used to be very skinny, and so she would always judge me on how skinny I was, and then I gained weight and it's like, oh my God, you're so fat. You know what I mean? Like very, very harsh, right? Always talked behind my back, made up stories about me behind my back, and then would come to me and tell me that I made up those stories, that I was talking behind her back. Lots of, and so I was like that for a long time. I didn't know I was like that because it was just my normal. And so in relationships, I was very, very hard on people. I was very, very hard on the men I was with. I've never felt loved in any relationship I've ever been in. I think I stopped feeling love when I was about 17. Like being able to feel the love with somebody. Like I'm very conscious of it, but there used to be a physical feeling that I would have around love. So I recreated a lot of that over and over and over. And then I did a ton of work, and I'm really conscious of how I am with people. And I really can see like who I'm being in all my relationships. And so the next part of my questioning is about relationships.
Okay. So we have a ton of questions just here. So before we move on to the next topic. So, okay, so I can loop this around. Relationship with mom today. Do you see her much, talk to her much? And she sounds like she's the same way.
Yeah. So yes, I actually, I spent the past 13 years trying to heal that relationship and doing, like I said, all my work and really getting clear about who I was being in the relationship and having very open-hearted, candid conversations. And thought that we did the work. Like I really thought that we were really beyond it. And I had a conversation with my brother on Saturday, and he shared with me that a couple months ago when she was up visiting, she just sat there and ripped me apart. So I'm in this state of, and he said to me, I don't understand why you even relate. Like I've always been the one that's there for her. My brothers have gone, and they're all over the place. And wherever my mom lives, I live in the same town or vicinity. And I'm always there. Like my brothers haven't been with her on Christmas for like 13, 14 years. It's my mom and I for Thanksgiving, my mom and I for our birthdays. It's my mom and I. And it's not fun. Right. So yes, the answer is yes. I still am, like, she wants to come here for Christmas. And when my brother said all that stuff, and he said, I don't understand why you even hang out with her the way that she treats you, right? And that's when I had this moment, and I was like, this is the abusive relationship that I'm in. This is it. And it's always been this, like I've just been projecting that into all my other relationships, right? And it's actually the one that's created the disconnect with everything else. Like my mother will say to me, I don't know why you don't have any self-confidence. I have so much self-confidence. I don't understand why you doubt yourself. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me, right? Like anything I've done in my childhood that was like I started to rebel very young. And, she used to tell me I was ruining her life and what a bitch I was. And, it was all my fault. And even to this day, she cannot figure out how come I had a reaction to, all the things that I had a reaction to. I didn't understand that either back in the day because there was no conversation about trauma and you know what I mean? So I did a lot of work in not blaming her for my experience. And I noticed that she's also completely unwilling to even acknowledge that a 11-year-old girl needs to talk to somebody when when the last thing they saw of their parents was like I saw my father try to kill my mom, you know what I mean, and she was in the hospital. And then we move across the country without my brothers. They stay with my father, and then she's gone 20 hours out of the day. So she couldn't figure out why I had a problem, right? So, and she still doesn't seem to want to understand any of those things. And she doesn't understand why my brothers, they both have a bit of drinking problems and they have relationship problems and things like that. And she's always telling them to get over themselves. And like, she's really mean about those things instead of actually accepting them for who they are, and like there's never been acceptance. It's always, I think by the time I was 13, my mother was dyeing my hair because I wasn't good enough, right? Like I need to look a certain way, and you know, she's pretty cruel. And I also know her essence. I also know that, you know, she's funny and she's wise and she's beautiful, and this is her wound, right? I really understand that. But that's, you know, the answer to the question is yes, I do. I am in contact with her, and she's the one that I hang out with the most, right?
So, and it's interesting because like just a few days ago, I had a situation sort of similar to yours. And my question to her was, so you're still enabling your mother though,
Yeah.
in you with that behavior, right? It's like when we enable an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
Right? We
Yeah.
allow them to keep doing it because we don't. So with this other person, just similar, because the comment your brother made me think of her.
Right.
Is, and her session's going to go out on YouTube eventually, but with her, everyone cut off the mom except her and the mom's brother. But everyone else walked away from the mom's life because they couldn't handle her. Like she was just toxic and obnoxious. And so she just stays in the mom's life and just takes this abuse and is always concerned about mom. And I need to take care of mom, and I can't leave mom alone, and feeling guilty and like it's my responsibility. And like, why do you feel it's your responsibility? Because we all, I mean, you know, you're in hypnosis. So we all have our own journey, right? And we all kind of make our own bed and we get to lie in it.
Yeah.
And so,
well, the thing that I think that I never actually saw was the fact that, you know, because I confront her with it all, like I bring all these conversations. So I think I was thinking that I wasn't necessarily enabling her. I was, you know, I haven't been nice through the whole process either, right? Like, you know, like I'm not innocent in this tango, right? So I think that's the part that's kept me in it, is like, first of all, not recognizing that it was an abusive relationship. So I, you know, and trying to heal my part of it, you know, like I've impacted her too, right? Like I'm, you know, I'm not innocent at all. So I think that's the part that kept me in that conversation, or kept me in that relationship. You know, my brothers and my aunts and things like that don't say the things. They just she just bulldozes them, and they're all like, whatever. And they walk away, right? Not many people confront her and say, hey lady, like you're completely out of line, or you're hurting my feelings, or that's not okay to say. Everyone's gotten tougher,
right.
so they can be with her, but you know, like nobody's really cut her out.
Right.
Longtime friends have, but
Right.
you know, her ex-husband did, things like that. But so I think the thing that I think the part is that I'm have been unwilling to be the victim, and really recognizing I'm a participant. So that's what keeps me in that relationship.
So, but how about what if you were to see that whole relationship? Because you said, I'm not innocent, she's not innocent. But what if you just see that whole loop of that relationship as just unhealable right now?
Absolutely. That's the part where when my brother said that, because he's always protected my mother in our relationship, right? So I was really surprised that he had a different perspective. And when he said that to me, I was like, oh my God, right? Because like I said, everyone's kind of enabled her, and I've been the bad guy because I'll speak up and I'll say the things. So yes, that's the place where I'm at right now. It's like this, I have to actually walk away from this for me to actually get me.
Right. You
right?
first.
Yeah, and that's what I thought I was doing.
Yeah, you have to put your mask on the plane first, right? Like you have to get your oxygen first.
Yeah. And I thought I was doing it. That's part of there's a pattern I have inside of me that I learned very, very young, to be bigger than the situation. Right. So I remember when I started it, like my parents were gong shows. I remember being really young going, whatever, they can do their thing. And I was always there to kind of, I think I created a persona of independence and strength, and a kind of a Teflon thing. And I used to feel like they were just really young and immature, but I was never going to leave them. Right. But I could understand. But what I did was I really just put aside all of my thoughts, feelings, and body sensations with this way.
Yeah.
So I always took the blame, and then, did the work, and then wanted to bring it over there to help the healing over there.
Right. So, and I know I'm going to say something you already know, but I love it. It's awesome to have somebody from the outside say something, because we can sit here and kind of loop around things, right, in our minds, and it can drive us crazy when we're thinking about it. But energy, right?
Yeah.
Same frequency, but mom's here. This is mom, and you're here. And so in order for you to interact with mom, you have to come here.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're not healing yourself or helping yourself by dipping down.
Yeah.
So for instance, last night I had a session. It was amazing. And the question she wanted to ask her higher self was, if my life is a garden, what are some of the weeds in my garden? And what are some of the beautiful flowers in my garden? Right. And so her higher self said that the weeds are the relationships that she allows to be in her life that make her dip down energetically. Right. Because she's on the path to enlightenment and growth, like supersonic growth and enlightenment, like true enlightenment and ascension in this lifetime, that she did all the really hard work and soul integration and everything in the life just before this one. Oh, wow. So this one is the one where she's on the path for ascension and enlightenment. Right. And so the weeds are keeping her on a slower path. Right. Yeah. And so said and named a name in her life and said, just like the friend that you just cut out, you have to cut the weeds. You don't keep them in your garden. Right. You have to cut them. Now, if they want to turn into beautiful flowers, you can welcome them back into your garden, right? Then they can grow in your garden and be beautiful flowers. But if they don't want to, you're taking that energy that you could be using for enlightenment and ascension and your own personal growth, and you're giving it to someone who's not going to grow. They're not interested right now, right? And so it's just one of those times. And her and I talked afterwards. It's like, sometimes we can go back and forth and talk in our minds and go, well, how do we discern who's a weed that we need to cut out versus someone that we're supposed to be an example, try to help them, say things to mom, like, hey, this is how you're being, like, try to get them to come along on the train with us of growth and change. And that we're not wasting our time. Like, how do we know that? And so as we were talking, like, my higher self was sitting there talking to me in the background of my mind, giving me a perfect example, because I actually am just dealing with this type of situation right now with someone. Yeah. And my higher self answered my question that I'd been asking for several days. I'm like, do I keep this person in my life? Do I not keep this person in my life? And the answer was, at high energy functions like birthday parties and Christmas and things like that, because she's not 100% toxic, she's like 80, right? Yeah. That the energy will be so high that she'll be there energetically to match my energy on those occasions. But it's when it's not those occasions, don't be around her, because that's where you have to come down to interact with her. Right. So one-on-one with you and mom, you're matching one or the other, and she's not going to come up and match you. Like, if you're alone on Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything like that, right? Yeah. That's a one-on-one situation. And that was what my higher self was saying, no one-on-ones with her. Right. Or not even just two people and you or whatever and her, right? It's got to be like a big group, like family celebration type of thing where everyone's happy. Yeah. And so let that be like something you can grab if you want to, right? Totally.
Yeah. And I think that's part of it. I think one of the questions I'd like to know is, like, how do I discern? But I think my baseline is to be with lower energy people. Knowing, I think, going back to the first question I asked about my energy, I think that's a lot to do with it. I think it's a lot to do with not allowing myself to be in joy, because I don't even know what that is. Like I have snippets of it, right? So really, and I've been really practicing out of that lower frequency of drama, and that, of always searching for something that's wrong, which is my family's MO, right? Um, so, I notice the people I attract in my life, those like my really good friends aren't that way. And I have to raise to their vibration,
Which is awesome.
which is awesome. And I notice the resistance to it because that's my comfort zone.
Mm.
And the men that I attract have no joy. There's always something to fix. There's always something, and I don't believe in that anymore, right? But it's really like, I feel like I'm like a hummingbird who has to sit still in most of my relationships, except for two or three of my really good friends that are like, they're hummingbirds, you know what I mean? And I won't go fly with them. So what I mean? Like, I'm in between. I'm in the in between stage.
Okay, so how about this? You said something important. You don't even know what joy feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So she doesn't even know what joy, I'm going to put, feels like. Would it benefit her to have you download Creator's definition of joy into her? And then can you download the program of, I know what it feels like to be in joy in my daily life. And then can you download the program of, I know how to have joy in my day-to-day life. And then what are some things she can do to bring more joy into her life? Because this is going to be a training period, like a self-training, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't say this in the beginning, but yeah, you're going to get lots of homework. You're going to get lots of homework from your higher self when we do these sessions. You get lots of homework. And so what my guides have showed me is to tell people, is this what we're doing? This is, so you go to the spiritual gym, right? Like you're growing spiritually and things, right? So that's the spiritual gym. And this is just a personal trainer session. This is just one day with the personal trainer. And it's like, okay, I'm going to show you all these exercises. Here's your list of exercises. Now you get to go to the gym every day and work on them, right?
Right.
And so the results you get is going to depend on how much you do on your personal training routine. And then when you get to the point where you're like, whoo, you know how you always like plateau? You're like, okay, I did all that. You climbed the Mount Everest, to use your analogy, right? I climbed up Mount Everest. Okay, now what? Well, there's another mountain waiting for you, right? And so it's like, you either know how to get there on your next step, or you come back for my more advanced hypnosis stuff that I do. I have way more like layers I peel for soul integration and healing and things like that. So you can do that. Or, go on your own and be like, oh, this healing brings me joy and I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this. But this will get you where your higher self believes these are where your sticking points are now, and give you the plan on how to get unstuck. And so having downloaded into your subconscious Creator's definition of joy, that's going to give you a new baseline.
Right. Nice.
Right? It's going to give you a baseline, because if this is our subconscious, this is the hard drive, we're just going to pull your old one out and then, or just give you a new one, right? Because you didn't know what it is. We're going to give you the definition, so you have that to pull on for as a new program. So I love it.
Cool. Nice.
Okay. And so let me go back to the notes again. Okay. So yeah, it sounds like there's like, mom's not the type of person that you can reason with. She's only, and it's not your job to make her see anything either, right? It's not like, it's not your job. Whether she sees it or not is what my guides have taught me. NMP, it's not my problem.
Right.
It's not your problem if mom sees it or not, or comes to the light or doesn't. it's you just focusing on you and putting your mask on, and let mom do what she's going to do with her mask, or not put her mask on, because she's got all kinds of lives she can get this right. She doesn't have to get it right in this lifetime, and it's not our responsibility to drag anyone else along. Right.
Right.
So yeah, kind of what I've learned in this is there's only 2 times when we can impact other people. And it's not by yeah, you can tell someone once, like, hey, you were a real jerk for acting that way or whatever, and this is what I see. And then it's up to them if they want to receive it and change. But there's only 2 times we can ever change anyone else. And the first one is just by being ourselves and being our light, right? Because then they will come and be like, oh, wow, she's so different. Like, she used to suffer from depression or whatever it is, right? And now look at her. So it's just by being ourselves, and people can then too ask us for help, or how did you change that? Or how did you get over that? Or, hey, I'm struggling with this. Do you have any advice for me? But those are the only 2 times. Because if we give our 2 cents and our advice when people aren't open to it, we're just literally expending energy that could be used for us. Right. And our self-care. And that's an act of actually not loving ourselves when we do that and try to drag someone else along.
Right.
So that's the area I was going to go to next with you, is self-love, because we're not loving ourselves when we subject ourselves to being in abusive situations.
Right.
And we expend energy on others at the expense of ourselves.
Right.
Right. So do you think that maybe there's a little self-love that we're lacking in your life for yourself?
For sure. I've been definitely, I've been practicing it for a long time. I've been doing lots of healing, and it's still, I could do with more self-love.
So would it benefit her to have you, and I'm just going to copy all these other questions that I did here. Would it benefit her to have you download Creator's definition of self-love into her? Then can you download the program of I know what it feels like to love myself and then I know how to love myself. And then, oops, sorry, moving around with my questions here. And then what are some things she should both cut out of her life and then add to her life to show herself love? How does that sound?
Right.
Okay, save that so I don't lose it. Okay. All right. And you're in Canada, right?
I am.
So you guys just had your Thanksgiving?
In October, yeah.
Oh, it's in October. Okay, got it. Got it. Okay. Is it a big deal like it is in the US?
Nope. No, not at all. We actually shifted it to Indigenous Day, thank goodness, but really shifted the paradigm around that.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So you said her pattern, I wrote her pattern is to be bigger than the situation. So you've done a lot of work around this. Has it been like self-work, therapy? Like what kind of work have you done around this, or both?
Oh, so I'm a coach, and I was coaching, and the coach training program, or the coaching that I've done, is ontological. So it's all about the study. It's the study of being. So I was with that program for 10 years. So I was trained, and then I was mentoring other people in the program. So training other people, as well as always being coached. I've always had a coach to support me in these processes. It was actually that program that had me My mother didn't talk to me for 2 or 3 years. She blamed me for something that I didn't do. And then part of the program supported me in getting really responsible for who I was being in that relationship.
Okay.
So like really checking, because I was a big victim to it. It was like, my mom did this to me, my mom did this to me kind of thing, right? And then I started realizing who I was being. So I've had that. I've done lots of hypnotherapy around it and lots of self-work.
And what was the word you used in the coaching program? I had never heard that word before.
Ontological.
What does that mean again?
The study of being.
Okay. Ontological.
Yeah. So it's really, so when I coach people, it's really to support them out of their ego identity and into their, like, to really get who they're being, like how they act and how their prejudices and their judgments and their patterns, and get to the essence of them. And so really supporting people to move out of their automatic and start to connect with the essence of themselves and move through the world from there.
Wow, just like my business name, Soul Essence.
Yep. Yeah, it's the baseline to everything I do, is from like to get to people's essence.
I love that. That is awesome.
Yeah, I
Wow.
really love it too. And so that, but it can be a little bit of a weapon when you have a codependent pattern and things like that, because I can see people's essence. And I really, so all of the shitty behavior becomes like, I could really just get that it's not their nature. You know what I mean? So I really hold a lot of love for people, and probably get taken, not, I don't get taken advantage of anymore, but like, you know, that's the thing, is I don't think I let people, or I used to not let, hold people accountable for their survival mechanism, right? For their shitty behavior, because I can see the light that they are, like so clearly. And I can just see like, oh, it's not who you are. So I have a ton of compassion, but I think the issue is being able to walk away. Right.
Because everyone here, we're just in a play, right?
Exactly. Like, this is just an experience. So why does it have to be so deep? You know what I mean?
Right. Why do we have to go so deep? It's like, oh, that's how you want to act right now. Cool. Go be you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go be me. Well, I'll catch you on the other side. And that's literally like just an example. Like I said that to my mom. I'm like, you go be you.
Yeah.
Who I've been talked to in many, many. I'm like, you go be you. I'll catch you on the other side.
Yeah.
They're not interested in playing nicely in my sandbox.
Yeah.
Right. And this is my sandbox, and this is how I keep my sandbox. And these are my sandbox rules. And if you don't want to play like that, I'll catch you on the other side. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just get to that point and it's like, go be you, and you just let it go of the fact that, gosh, I cried 10 years over Mother's Day. You know what I mean? Like, you grieve the mom you didn't have, right? You got to grieve the mom you didn't have. Like I tell my sons that, with the whole COVID thing, right? You grieve the life you used to have, and then you got to move on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think I've done that. I don't think I've actually said like, hey, this is where I want to, this is the life I live, right? Like my mother just can't be with my gifts, can't be with, I mean, like, she's literally said to me, you're not allowed to be smarter or wiser than I am. You're just not allowed to be, right? She has told me things like, I made you and I can take you out, like just like really suppressive, she won't read any of my writing. She won't listen, she won't acknowledge the work that I do. She'll acknowledge everybody around me. But me, there's a thing, I can feel it in her body when I'm with her. Like there's this like, it's, and a lot of people have said it's a competition. Like there's that. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right. So I remember one of my girlfriends said, have you read the last thing that Cammie wrote? And she was like, no, like her face was like, no, I couldn't do that. And then she said to her, you should, she's actually quite brilliant. And my mother was like, no, because it's just a no for her. Right. So I've I think a lot of this self-doubt and this, like, don't get too big conversation, like if I think about it metaphorically, because I'll piss my mom off,
Mm.
right? Like, who do you think you are? I was brought up with. Like most, I think a lot of people were.
Okay, so, and that's just interesting, this, how much it's like this other woman's life that I'm telling you about. So here's some of the questions that kind of came up. So what is it that keeps, and tell me if you want me to word this or take it out, that keeps Cammie so entangled and tethered to her mother? Is there any, and you've probably done this, but any more cord cutting or soul retrieval that needs to take place for there to be a healthy separation between her and her mom and her mom's energy? What kind of relationship should she have with her mom going forward for Cammie's best and highest good? Want those two questions or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
I already have the answers. Like I just had this memory of when I was doing pendulum work, and it literally said to stay away from her. And the question, it felt like, what's the thing, is guilt.
Okay, so is Cammie holding guilt in her body anywhere? Which we know the answer is probably yes, because I hear it too. And if yes, where is it? What does it look like? And can you pull it, send it to Creator's light, and download in her instead Creator's definition of freedom?
Mm.
What does that look like to have that downloaded into her? How will her life be different now without the guilt tethering her to her mom, and with peace in its place instead? How about that?
Great.
So I love how, and you probably see this in a lot of your clients too, when you have clients come to you, they mirror certain aspects of you, right? Like they have certain, right? Isn't it awesome? So you're mirroring a lot of my relationship with my mother, right?
Yeah.
And my guides were very clear
Yeah.
about, and I did set the boundary because she didn't want to play in my sandbox with my rules, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which were just personal boundaries. That's all they were. I wasn't asking anything ridiculous. Don't criticize my kids. Don't try
Yeah.
to parent me when I'm, however old, right? Like
Yeah.
just don't. Just be grandma. Just be mom, right? She
Yeah.
couldn't, she couldn't, she couldn't agree to that. And don't get drunk in front of me, right? And she couldn't agree to those things, right? So I was like, okay, I gave her two chances, and then was like, I'll catch you on the other side, And then a couple times in between there, I've done so much forgiveness work for her, and really finally let go of the last hooks that I felt were there, right? And did that timeline healing with her. And so I'm like, I think I'm okay if I bring her back in my life. And my guides were like, no, no. I
Oh,
feel like it was a loud no. And I've approached my guides several times about it. And they were, every single time it was like, no,
yeah.
she's not interested. She's
Mm.
not, this is not the life where she's going to be anything but toxic.
Right.
So why would you, the whole weed thing again, and they were talking to me about her also at the same time, was
Right.
she's one of the weeds. It
Right.
feels bad calling your mom a weed, but she's one of the weeds. Like
Yeah.
you have so many other things you need to be using your energy for, and it's not on her.
Right. Right.
Just because she's your mom doesn't mean she has to be in your life.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So where were we going next? You kind of were starting on a different sort of topic, I think.
Well, I think it goes into relationships.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's where you were going. Okay.
my question is, am I just supposed to be single this lifetime?
Oh, okay.
Because I know that I made a conscious decision when I was a little girl that I was going to be single. I remember really clearly, like I wanted to be a flight attendant and just have like men wherever I wanted them, kind of thing. Like, I didn't have any concept of what a long-term relationship looked like. And so, based on my scenario, I wasn't going to do what my parents did, right? So I made up this thing. It's just like when I was a kid, I decided I wasn't going to have kids, and I've never been pregnant in my life, right? So I don't know if that was more my soul conversation or if it was a reaction.
What if
Because
it was like almost like a vow on a soul level?
yes.
So that's what with the question I was going to say, if you wanted, is has she made any vows in this lifetime or any others that are impacting her now?
Right.
And if yes, what are they? And then whatever questions come off of that. And then the follow-up question, is she supposed to be single in this lifetime? She remembers making the decision or the vow. It was vow, right?
Pretty much.
Making.
I remember the vow was my partner was going to live down the street from me. It was such a weird, and I've always had long distance relationships of some sort, or men that do not want to live with me or do not want to. And when they do, it's because they're like, the last one was because he had a car accident. So his whole life fell apart. And so he came into, he lived with me and I took care of him until he was better. And then he went off and now he's doing his own thing. You know what I mean? Like I've had a couple of those scenarios. So yeah, it's like there's this, and none of my relationships have ever felt like it's been here and here again, right? Like I'm
Genetically misaligned.
Yeah, totally misaligned, right? And I fall in love with their potential, which and then I do what my mom did, which is like criticize, and if you did this better, and if you did this better, if you did that better. And so I completely emasculate them, and then they don't want to be near me, which I've shifted since my last relationship. I haven't, I really understand that, that isn't my actual way of being, right? Because my heart is really quite open. And I'm protected. So I'd like the protection to go away.
I think you got a heart wall.
I do. I think that's what I think I have a heart wall too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I can feel it. I can feel when I think about when someone's like, so are you interested in getting into a relationship? And I'm like, yes. And then I can feel this, all the but this and but that and but that. And I'm not going to find the person. And like all these things start to, so yeah, I'd like to create something that would be fun and free and adventurous and, things like that.
So you do want a relationship.
Yeah. Remember, I talked to a psychic last year on my birthday, because my birthday's in a couple of days, and every year I do something like this, so
that's right. Yes, that's right. Happy birthday.
So she said, your soulmate's right around the corner, but my practice was to be open, like to be, I receive, I'm willing to meet him, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. And I think I met a person right away, and it was like I had to keep practicing that. And then I noticed when I shut it down, and then that person was gone. And that, there was just this, I can see how I do this, right? Like he wasn't ready for a relationship. So I'm like, that's interesting. There's so much greatness there, and yet I don't want a relationship. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, how come this is happening over and over and over, right? So
okay. So how about this? Does she have a heart wall? If yes, what is it made out of? And can you show us what it looks like to remove the heart wall? She wants to create a fun, free, adventurous relationship with a man that she can experience love in, what would it take for her to be energetically aligned with that? Does she have any blocks?
Cool.
Okay. And so, how about this one? How about, this just popped in my head. Is there any karma she has created in this lifetime? And if yes, what would it take for her to balance that karma so that it does not get carried, does not get carried into another life? Want that one? I was just thinking about, I don't know if there's any, just you said that you kind of continued with your mom, like you the way your mom is, and degrading and putting down these men and things like that. And I don't know if it was like, no, there's no karma because you guys both agreed to that so they could be a mirror to show you how you were, or if there was any karma in that. I mean,
Well, my mom did a past life regression 25 years ago, and her and I were sisters, and my grandmother was our mother. And she took somebody's husband, like the person was, I think it was mine, right? Where she, or I did to her, something like that. Like there was that connection between men, and there was also my jealousy with my grandmother, who was my mother at the time. Like there was a whole bunch of stuff in there that I remember. I don't remember it verbatim, but I think that's the karma that we're here to move out of the way.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to see if your higher self, what you have to do to balance that, right?
Right.
Like
to move out of it. Because I feel like there's honestly, Tracy, I feel like from the ages of 1 to 7, I was one person.
okay.
From 8 to 15, no, I'm probably one person from like born until I was about 8 or 9. And then from like 9 to 15, I was a different person. From 15 to 20, I was a different person. From, like, I feel like I've lived about 7 lifetimes. And when I was in the like 9 to 15, I was very controlling. I did things that I've done a lot of forgiveness around this, but I've done things that are, that if people kind of found out that I would be in trouble for, right? They're not something I really want to share with the world, kind of thing. But it almost feels like I was taken over. When I think about things, I'm like, I would never, like, I hurt animals at one point when I was in that age group. You know what I mean? Like, I've done things that doesn't even feel like it's part of who I am. Right? Like I think about some of those things every so often. I'm like, oh my God. Right? So that could be the karma. Right?
Oh, this is a really fast, I'm going to take this and move this to the questions. Like, what was going on there? And is it anything that's still around or impacting you at all today? Right?
Right.
Because it sounds like there could have been definitely some negative.
Well, there's things that, like I said, I've never shared with anybody in the world. And the things that I did or was done to me, I feel like they would, like, we just live in a really judgmental world, right? And to have no compassion for like things that happen and don't happen, you know. And it's actually helped me expand my ability to hold compassion for people and in what they do and they don't do, because I really get that it's not who they are, it's an experience that they're having and that they've had, and stuff like that. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's interesting how to learn compassion, you you allowed those things to happen to you.
Yeah,
That's what it sounds like, for
it
you to
does.
understand what compassion really was,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 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 I just think that there's still some guilt and shame around the other people that might have been in the situations
Mhm.
with me and stuff like that. So, yeah.
So does she carry the trapped emotion of shame? And if so, where is it and what does it look like? And can you remove that now? And tell us what that looks like to have you remove it.
Like, I feel like I've actually removed it.
Oh, okay.
Like, I feel like I've removed it. And the point is, like, I think the karma is still about that relationship with my mother. But I think and what I was really just trying to get to is, like, I feel like I've been all these different people. And there was a time when I was really manipulative and mean and angry, and I can't really, there's no other words for it, but I wonder if there's anything connected to that. But I honestly feel in my being that I've done a lot of work there. And I could be wrong. There could be something there.
Yeah, and if there's not, then your higher self will be like, no, it's just her and her mom or whatever, right? It'll just be quick, right?
Yeah.
With her mom. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff going on between you and mom too, but also just kind of, I see, just from an outsider, just not knowing how to walk away, or not having done that yet, right? And
Right.
just being, wait, I want off this like ride that's been making me dizzy for most of my life. Like, why have I stayed on this ride? It was like I said with me, I just was like, I'm getting off the ride. If you want to stay on the ride, you just keep going, but you're gonna have to find other people to ride it with you, because I'm not staying on this ride.
Right. Right.
So yeah, and that can be hard with family relationships, like especially if we have any guilt or shame around it. It's because it's like, oh, well, she's going to be alone for Christmas, or oh, she's going to be alone for Thanksgiving. NMP, not my problem, right?
Yeah.
Not my problem.
Yeah.
As cold or callous as some people may say that sounds, it's not. It's putting my mask on first, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think there's a habit for me, and I just noticed this in relationships too. Like, whenever it's broken, it feels like I have to fix it. Like, if I don't, I'm a failure.
Mm.
The person I was with, in a relationship with, every time something wasn't working, it was, I can't describe it, but there's like this feeling that comes over me that it's like, over my dead body, is this not going to work?
Mm.
So I do everything I can to fix the language isn't how I approach life, but I'll just use it from that perspective, to fix everything in me so that person can experience, like, so it's not broken. So it says, like, I can't fail in those situations. Does that make sense?
So you try to fix other people by fixing yourself? I'm trying to understand.
I keep I'm unwilling to break the bond, so I fix myself. Like, as soon as I see that this relationship is failing, I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? I have to do something over here. And like, there's almost this, like, it's visceral, like, over my dead body will this relationship end. So I actually step over the fact that it's toxic, or it's abusive, things like that, because it must be because of my parents. It must be because they broke up. You know what I mean? Like, if I think about it logically, it must be like, because I also severed many relationships. I've lived all over the country. I've moved so many times that I used to go to 2 different schools a year because we moved so many times, right? So I think there's a part of me that was like, that tries to make sure that I can keep relationships going no matter what the circumstances are.
Mm.
I just have to go to the washroom. I'll be right back.
Absolutely. Okay. So moving all over the country, move so much. So now you feel there may be a need for you to keep relationships going because of the fact you had so many severed ones growing up, right?
Yeah. And there's like this conscious, like, I will not fail. It's really weird.
Okay. Are there any questions in any of that that you wanted to ask?
No, I think it has to do with, so I'm just looking at the questions I wrote. I think it just has to do with relationship patterns.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to ask like a general question? What patterns?
Yeah, I wrote, what's up with my relationship patterns? Am I just not meant to experience love?
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
How about this one? What patterns in her need to be addressed and healed for her to experience healthy relationships with others?
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Did we do something? We did something a little bit about my career, did we not?
Let me look at the actual questions. I know we put some, well, I'm pretty sure we put something at the top. Let me look. We got lack of energy. Okay, here we have, is it in her soul plan to impact more people with the work that she does? And if yes, what is preventing her from doing that? What's the root issue? Does it have anything to do with her spending so much time alone as a child? And then we went into at 3 being hit by the car and feeling alone, and then been, doing the timeline healing. So that's all we put in career. Did you want
Okay.
anything else with career?
Yeah, I'd like to know what I should be doing for a living. If it's not this, and if it's a version of this, what else? You know what I mean?
Okay. Is there something else or something more she should be doing with her career as a life coach, right?
Or just, yeah, just as something I should be doing for a living as part of my purpose, I suppose.
Okay, so let me take out as a life coach because I have, is there anything else or something more she should be doing else? Okay, else she should be doing as a career, comma, or more she should be doing with her current career as a life coach.
And, or you can put even like, should I expand more with the hypnotherapy? Should I, you know what I mean? Like,
So you do coaching and hypnotherapy, or do you kind of combine the two? Or
well, if they, people get to choose if they just want to coach or do hypnotherapy. And some people do both.
and so when you do hypnotherapy with people, is it like this? Just to be clear, this is
It's not
not real.
QHHT. It's, you know, I do an intake with them. We pick a goal that we're looking at, and then, you know, we work session by session that way. So it's kind of the older, less of the quantum version of it. So yeah, it's not this long.
No, I guess what I meant is it just to be clear, this is really channeling, right?
Right.
We call it hypnosis, but it's not really hypnosis. It's channeling. We're channeling our higher self. We're channeling our spirit guides. And a lot of times the voice will come in and say, we, blah, 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 blah. And so I like to always follow up and say, who is we?
Right.
Oh, it's all levels of her higher self. Or the other day it was, it's her higher self and her guides. I'm like, okay, which guides are here? Who are they? Like, you know what I mean? I want to know who we is that we're talking about, right? And so is it more, and that's channeling. That's not hypnosis, right? That's channeling.
No, I haven't. That's the part that I'm more like, I'd like to get into, because I do free flow hypnosis. But I think, intuitively, I feel like what I need to be opening up to is that spiritual aspect of me. Like I'm like, people relate to me as very, very connected. And I stop myself from being that way. Does that make sense? Like just before this call, I led 8 people through meditation. We're doing a 30-day meditation challenge, right? So I lead people in lots of ways, but when people come to me for hypnosis, it's, to end a challenge. So it's more traditional than it would be channeling. And I'd like to
okay, yeah, that was my question. Is it more traditional?
More traditional, and I'd like to actually get more into the channeling aspect of it and actually start using the language of connecting with your higher self, that kind of stuff. So that's what I'd like to be doing.
Yeah. Connecting with your higher self or your parent soul, or all those things. Should she get more into this type of hypnosis where people channel higher aspects of themselves? Does the thought of that bring you joy?
It does. It feels aligned. Like I've always had this version of, I remember when I first, about 13, 14 years ago, I remember saying to my coach, there's this sage that sits inside of me, and she's got long gray hair and wears tie-dye, and she wants to come out, but I really hate how the tie-dye she's wearing. Like there's this version of me, right? Like I think the relationship with my mom is so strong because she's always been about looking perfect, right? Acting perfect, etiquette, all of that kind of stuff, and not a lot of connection to the soul version of you. And I've always been, the soul version of me, and I cover it all up with looking good and being professional. But I'm actually, if you talk to anybody in my life, I'm the rebel in all of the perfectionists. Like I'm the one who coaches free flow and does my, and uses my intuition instead of, even with hypnosis, I don't use scripts. I use my intuition and I walk through people, like I feel things, right? So there's a both and I still feel that hesitation to like drop the suit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I'm a massive stand for authenticity, and people, that's what I'm known for, is no bullshit. I can see right through it all. And then I notice where I hold myself. And I'm pretty authentic, but that's the place. It's like there's a fear of actually really just letting go and being a channel.
So when you say being
it's not fear, it's a doubt.
Okay. So when you say, you just said you used the word being a channel. So do you mean you being the channel, or do you mean like what I do as in being like the guide for them to channel? Which one interests
I think
you?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Like having, trusting like I'm doing more and more of understanding, like not doubting what comes through me. Right. But being a guide is, and has always been, part of my nature.
Okay. So do you want to ask specifically about you doing any channeling, if that's part of your soul contract to bring anything through? Okay.
Yeah, just like, I guess that's the thing. Like I'm willing to sit back and guide, and I just want to know which way to go, essentially.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because it just seems like it would be a really natural thing for you to just flow right into this kind of hypnosis, really channeling, right? Being a channeling guide.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I feel like I really need to keep using the word hypnosis though, because number one, most people don't know what a channel is. And a lot of times it can just strike fear in people just because of the whole religious thing around it. If oh, and people don't realize obviously that we're channeling all the time. When you're painting a beautiful portrait or doing painting or writing a music or writing a song or whatever, you're channeling, right? You're channeling higher aspects of yourself. So,
and people have that same conversation around hypnosis. They're, like they're terrified, that you're going to control them, and
right.
yeah,
That they're opening themselves up to dark energies, dark forces, things like that, right? Instead of just I am powerful, I am statements. So here's my powerful I am statement about that. I am impervious to evil.
right.
Right?
Nice.
It doesn't touch me. I am. That's my statement. I am impervious to evil. I can't take credit for that. I learned that from my baby healing instructor. She had that one and I was like, I'm grabbing that. I like that. That's me. I am impervious to evil too, right?
Yeah, totally agree.
It doesn't impact me. I have no fear around things like that. Okay. So we got career, we got relationships. We're at the limit for questions, but let's see what else you have on your list.
I just have, they're just silly, but I think they're important. So I'm not,
So silly.
I don't mean like, so there's two things. So I struggle with where I should live. I move a lot. I always have.
Okay.
There's a part of me that's always showing me the beach in the sun, always, since forever. And so I almost feel like that's what I need to do, is go live in Mexico or somewhere where, because there's no, what I do for a living, I can take anywhere in the world.
Right. Did you do yours online?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the other one is, so I'm unvaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very conscious that I hold space for anybody that is and anybody isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Really don't. Somewhere in my being it says don't, and I don't have any other reason, but I listen to what my being is saying.
Mm-hmm.
So the question I have is, am I being ridiculous for not being vaccinated? Right? Because there is, right where I live right now, there's mandates. You can't go to restaurants, events, travel. I can't go on a bus or a plane or a boat. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. And so I'm just wondering if I'm separating myself or if this is really for me. Because I'm a strong believer in the ascension. I'm a strong believer that we are moving out of a certain way of being, that, I do believe that we are, breaking down the systems, and we have to,
Do you feel any fear around any of it, or do you feel no fear about it? And can you move to Mexico being I don't even know Mexico's rules. Can you go there being unvaccinated? And what are they leaning toward?
I can go unvaccinated. They've been really great about it, in my opinion, but I can't leave this country after November 30th without being vaccinated.
You can't leave without being vaccinated?
No, and I couldn't come back. So if I want to get on a plane, I have to do it before November 30th.
So can't you drive across the border though without being vaccinated? You can't do that either?
No, I can't drive. The US border is a hell no without being vaccinated.
Really?
Yeah, it's like everywhere
which irritates the crap out of me, because we can bring all these people from all these foreign countries in and allow people to come in from the southern border, but yet you can't come across the border.
What? I believe that's how, it's just and that's why I'm like curious if this is just a box I'm creating, or if it's, because I really trust that this is going to go away. I really trust that as we allow ourselves to be in the possibility of what's happening, right? Because I do hear a lot of people like, this is it, we're going to get, they're going to take all of our more and more of our rights away and stuff like that. Because there's doctors that won't talk to you if you're not vaccinated. You can't rent places right now if you're not vaccinated. Like there's tons of things that are happening, right? And I just believe that this happens before, like when it, then the dam breaks and people start to see things, right? So is there a fear if I get vaccinated? I think there's a little bit of one. There's a little bit of like, it's not fear, but I've always been really clear that the rules don't apply to me.
Yeah, there's where you mirror me too. I love it.
Yeah. Like the rules just don't apply to me. I do it. I'll get whatever I need. I will find a way. And I've been very, very, very clear about that in my life. And I struggle when people are feel limited that way.
Totally relate.
So that's why I'm like, I'll just wait it out, or I'll find a different way, you know? So that question, it just came to me recently. I'm like, am I just being ridiculous? Is this part of me staying separate on a physical level?
Okay.
And I imagine that my higher spirit, my higher self would be like, do whatever you want. That's just kind of what it feels like.
Well, if you think about it technically, so I had a session with a woman who had the same question. Her thinking though was, I'm not vaccinated, but I feel like it doesn't really matter if I get vaccinated or not. Like it doesn't matter one way or the other. So I explored it with the idea of parallel lives, right? So her higher self said, there's a version of her that did not get vaccinated, but her higher self said, yeah, go ahead. It's not really going to make any difference to you. It's not against your soul contract, right? For this version of you, it's not against your soul contract. Go ahead and because otherwise you're just going to be really building up a lot of tension and anger in you that you can't go to restaurants, that you can't go to concerts, like all these things. And she's in the US and it's not nearly as strict as it is in Canada. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so I explored it about parallel lives, and there is a version of her that did not get vaccinated. And I said, so how did that life go? And yeah, she just was really restricted in that life on what she could do and what she couldn't do, but she just, made it work and just didn't do those things. And then I took it one step further with her. She ended up by choice getting an abortion when the doctors told her that the baby had massive problems. It may or may not live. And, there was a high likelihood it would live, but it would be really severely handicapped physically and mentally. Right. And so her and her husband didn't want to put the burden on their current daughter of, hey, when we die, my older daughter is going to be responsible for taking care of her younger sister, who's not going to be able to take care of herself. And they didn't think that was fair to the sister. So they chose to abort the other daughter, right? Well, so we asked about it. I asked about it. And there was a parallel version of her and her husband that kept the baby. And I said, so how did that life turn out? Oh, the baby was not nearly as mentally disabled as the doctors told her it would be.
Oh God. Yeah.
Right. But it did have a lot. It still was disabled, and she wasn't able to function on her own, like live on her own.
Right.
Because I know where you were going with that, because doctors can be very wrong, right?
Well, my doctor told me I was going to be paralyzed by the time I was 21.
Yeah.
So I wasn't allowed to do sports and all that kind of shit, right?
Right. So, but she was, had other handicaps, and the sister did end up, after the parents died, the sister did end up having to take care of the sister for a while, but then she realized that she didn't have the energy for that any longer. And so she did it for a while, but then she put her, I think, in a home or something like that. And then that's how they ended up living the rest of their lives out. But so whatever decision you make, there's another parallel, because you're thinking about it, you have created that other version of you that did get the vaccine. So one of you is going to not get it, and one of you is going to get it. Because if you get it, now there's another version of you that's not going to.
Right.
So it's kind of like, which version do you want to be? Because there's going to be one version of you that's going to do the other.
Right. It's so fascinating. Yeah.
Right. So there's really no wrong answer either way. It's like, well, which reality do you want to experience? Well, let's have the question be, if you want, which one is the best and highest timeline for you, for this version of you? Right. Okay.
Yep.
So, because there's two versions.
Yeah, that's so excellent.
Isn't that fascinating? I love the whole thing about parallel lives, right?
Yeah. And where did you learn more of it besides Dolores Cannon?
No, I didn't learn the parallel life thing from Dolores Cannon. I am a reading fiend.
Oh,
My library is ginormous. And parallel lives, I first started learning about from Bentinho Massaro, who you can listen to him on YouTube. He has I like his older stuff better than his like current stuff. So you have to go back like maybe 2 to 4 years ago and find his stuff on parallel lives. That piqued my curiosity. And then there's a book, I'm going to pull it up on Audible because this is the most comprehensive book about parallel lives that you could ever read, or I listened to it on Audible. And I need to start it over because it's been a while since I started it and I never finished it. So I want to go back because I was taking diligent notes when I was listening to it because it's
right.
really thorough and good. It is called Parallel Universes of Self by Frederick E. Dodson. Dodson. It's 14 hours and 23. Oh no, that's how much I got left. I got left 14 hours. I've already listened to a bit of it, but Parallel Universes of Self. And he's got several other books out there too that are on my wish list, but I haven't gotten through that one because then something else kind of piques my curiosity. I get a little bit, just enough to know a little bit, and then something else piques my curiosity and I'm on to another book. I try to keep one book on my nightstand, and I think I've got probably like 10 on my nightstand because I'm like dipping into all of them at the same time. But oh my gosh, you probably really love this one. This is one of my recent ones I'm digging into now, and it is amazing. Soul Integration by Sal Rachel.
Yeah.
Amazing.
This is all the stuff I love. And I think that's where I want to be going. So that's just what I
had to turn my heater off. Yeah, it sounds like that this stuff is more like aligned because it's kind of sparking joy in you. So you like, I don't know what joy feels like, but Bentinho Massaro, the first name I gave you, he talks, listen to his stuff is amazing. Like I'm saying, from the stuff from like 2 to 4 years ago, he talks about following the breadcrumb trail of excitement. Like his words ring in my head because he was one of the first real deep spiritual teachers that I found when I discovered spirituality and really started following someone. It was him. And even though a lot of it was just like way over my head, I would listen to each one of his things like 50, 60 times to get new little nuggets every time I listened to it. Cause I knew, okay, it's creating new neural pathways in my brain. And while I don't get it now, maybe the 8th time I'll get that concept. Right. And so it did. I kept listening to it. But so he talks about following the breadcrumb trail of excitement. And so does Bashar. You know who Bashar is? The channel being Bashar.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So Bashar talks about, without saying it in those exact words, but whatever brings you more joy at the moment. So just an example, one day I was at the gym and I was like looking, and the stair climber was one way and the treadmill was another way. And that's where I would always go and put my Audible in and listen while I was on either one doing my cardio, right? And so it was like, oh, which one brings me more joy? I'm going to follow the breadcrumb trail of excitement, stair climber or treadmill. And I was like, just something so simple like that, right?
Totally.
Right. And I was just like, treadmill. For that day, it was treadmill, right? So I went on the treadmill. I open YouTube and there's Bashar like popping up on my screen without me searching for him. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to this, right? I'm just being led. And it was him talking about every little thing you do in your life. Ask yourself, which one brings me just a little bit more joy than the other, even if it's a work task. Okay. Which one brings me just a little bit more joy than the other one, and just follow that one and do that one. And so like Bentinho, it's just following the breadcrumb trail of excitement, and that leads you to your purpose and your path.
Right. That's awesome.
And that's how I ended up doing this.
Right.
I literally just kept following the breadcrumb trail of excitement. It started with learning Reiki.
Right.
You know what I mean? Well, actually, it started with reading Marianne Williamson's book called A Return to Love. That was my very first thing, right?
That was my very first book in 1997 or something like that, whatever it was.
That's awesome. You've been in this a lot longer than me, but yeah.
Well, I didn't do anything with it. It was just like, I was like, oh my God, I feel like you're talking about me. And so then I started doing Louise Hay work, but I was still like, it was like I was doing it, but I was still living like I wasn't doing it.
Oh.
right? For like my 20s and 30s and stuff like that. Like I didn't actually jump into any of this in 2008 when I started the coach training program. And I
Right.
feel like the coach training program was there to heal me. And that's why I'm wondering if coaching is still the thing, because it almost feels like it was my therapy. It was for
Mhm.
me to find the part of me that was missing for all of those years. Cause I was like you know, underground. I couldn't meditate back in the day. I couldn't, like, all of those, like my ego was really strong,
Mm.
even though I would, like, do affirmations and listen to subliminal things, but I never brought that to the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm like, I think this is either a go big or go home conversation right now,
Mm.
right? Because I can be so bored with the whole situation. And I think that that's it. It's like, I think the part that I'm not bringing the parallel lives and the multi diversity of human beings to my conversations as much. Like I am, but most people are hiring me to fix something,
Mm.
right? And or to build their business or to do the thing, and I know how to do all that, and I can support people with my eyes closed. But it's literally like, oh my god, I don't want to have one more conversation about how to get another client, or, and that's not that I don't want to, I do, but it feels like I'm not allowing myself to step into the next step. Yeah, I feel like I've been trying to find security for such a long time because my life was so chaotic.
Mm.
Like I've lived on the streets. I was a prostitute in my 20s. You know what I mean? Like I've done a whole bunch of stuff, right? Like, and I have no shame with any of that stuff, right? Like, it feels like a different lifetime completely.
Right.
And I made myself so wrong all my life. And it's the past 5 or 6 years where I'm like, there is nothing wrong with you. You're extraordinary. You know what I mean? Like really, really getting that and understanding that for myself. Um, and because I used to, like, all of the things about me, like I'm very flexible. I can change in a heartbeat. Like I've got a ton of skills and abilities, but they were my weapons back in the day. You should stay in one spot and never move. You should have one career and never have a different one. You should only have one partner and try to make it work for, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So I beat myself up for being someone that thrives in change and movement and, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff.
Well, and yes, so because people like you and I didn't come here to play in the matrix. Like we came here to make our own rules
Yeah.
and learn how to live outside the matrix, in the matrix, right? Right? So like the Christian saying, you're in this world but not of this world,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why where you said what was it you said earlier? You basically said something like about not finding a way to make it work despite the rules. Like the rules don't apply to you, right? So
Yeah.
that's like, yeah, like people like you and me, and I'm the same. Like I move around a lot. I can't stay in the same place. Like it's just not me. I can't be stuck in a marriage and be like, oh, let's make it work no matter what. No, no, that's not it. It's not
Yeah.
wrong, right? We don't
And
have
I like
any
to
problem moving on.
explore. I like to, like, I don't, I like, I've lived lives in this lifetime that have been dark and what society thinks is wrong and all of that stuff. And I've always just found the humanity in every situation I've been in, like the love, when I was kicked out of my mom's house when I was 14, like I bounced around all over the place. I've lived at all my friends' houses and families' houses, my grandmother, all the places. And, I was on my own essentially. And I was surrounded by who were like prostitutes and drug dealers and pimps and stuff like that. But they were the people that I roller skated with when I was 13. You know what I mean? So they were people that were just living a different life. They were all people I knew from junior high or whatever it was, but to change their trajectory. And they were still hilarious and kind. And you know what I mean? There was so much like, and that's the thing, is I can be in any situation without judgment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I learned judgment, and and I'm unlearning judgment more and more and more. Like I always found people kicked out of life, and brought kindness to there. Like just let people know, like, you belong here just as much as that person belongs here. You know what I mean? So, and I've also been a bully. You know what I mean? Like there's been all of these experiences I've had, right? So I used to beat myself up for all of that instead of actually, because my mother used to tell me I was a wimp and I was weak and um, all that kind of stuff, instead of actually empowering, like, wow, you are very diverse. You're, stuff like that. So now I'm at the place where I'm like, I think I'm amazing, and really applaud all the things that I've been through, because I've been through a lot. And I just want to kind of undo this heaviness that I still hold, that keep, like, I'm holding my feet to the ground, because I feel like if I move to Mexico, I'll forget about my business and then I'll get lost. You know what I mean? Because I'll be having too much fun. There's a thing about having too much fun, because I wasn't allowed to have fun as a kid.
And so I just heard the word fear in there too, though.
Yeah.
Without you saying fear, I heard fear, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm afraid I might have to, well, you did say afraid. I'm afraid I might have too much fun and then jeopardize my business, which would jeopardize your sense of security, right? Your ability to provide for yourself, your root chakra.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Because that's the thing that's always been impacted, if you think about it, right?
Survival, right?
Survival, right? So I really can see that, but it's stopping me, because now I'm like, oh, because I'm super clear. I'll always be taken care of intellectually, right?
Right. Intellectually, right. But that's not, you mirror me again, so I can relate. So intellectually is completely different than getting it out of, oh, here's the word that just came up. Okay. So I'm formulating the question. Is her body still functioning? Body keeps the score, right?
Yeah.
Is her body still functioning in survival mode in any areas of her life, even though intellectually, I keep meaning to read that book too. Body keeps the score, right?
I know, me too.
I keep meaning to read it, and it keeps coming up in all these sessions. Like, I need to read it. I need to add another book to my nightstand.
Yeah, me too.
Or on one of my shelves over here, or my library of Audibles. So even though intellectually she knows she is always taken care of, is there that energy still being held on a cellular level in her? And if yes, are you able to pull that belief / trauma of being in survival mode? It's like shedding a skin, right? Because you're not even that old life anymore. Like you keep saying, it's not you anymore, but it's like, why is this skin still here? Like, why is it still sticking to me? Like, yeah, body keeps the score. And you know what? Okay, so yeah, my guides just told me I'm going to learn a lot more about this, because in this spring I'm going to be taking some theta healing classes. That have you ever heard of theta healing?
You told me about it when we talked the first time, and I looked it up, and it looks like there was nothing in Canada, and I think it was in person at the time, and I needed to do online.
Yeah, so the woman who's giving them online is the same instructor that I had, Victoria Rader. I'll give you her website if you want. It's the letter Y, the letter U, the number 2, and the word shine.com, Victoria Rader. I don't think she has her schedule online yet for next year. I think this is like her planning season where she plans, but she's hoping and pushing and she's a high up instructor with the whole theta healing thing. She's hoping and pushing for all the classes to be able to be taught online because she has clients all over the world. And I don't know what, we haven't talked to her about this. I don't know if it has anything to do with the vaccine and inability to travel overseas, because I know she used to go to teach in Dubai a lot, but maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. It's not my business, not my problem, but I know she's really trying and hoping to get a lot of her classes to be able to be taught online again. So if they are,
I imagine she's also just being inclusive, right? So people that don't, maybe she's vaccinated, but maybe other people aren't. So she's
think about that. Yep,
yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. Because even if she's in Dubai, how will people from other European countries get there, right? Yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, but yeah, so I've done, you know, the basic levels and gone up, and that's where a lot of my questions come from in my training. So it's not just Dolores Cannon's, the theta healing too is a huge part of what I do. But so I'm going to be taking something called intuitive anatomy, which is like basically teaching you how to be a medical medium. And then
that gives me goose. That's my thing since I was a kid.
Oh, well,
Like,
there you
I'm
go.
so clear about like that like that physical, the body makes or keeps
Body
score.
keeps score. Yeah.
Yeah, like that
Yeah.
is
So after you get through the basic classes, you can do intuitive anatomy, it's called. And then the one after that, it's something like sickness and disease or something like that. That's the one where my guides in higher self want me to get, but you have to take intuitive anatomy to get there. Like it's
okay.
so
Right.
intuitive anatomy is like 15 days. It's really pricey because it's 15 days, but and then the disease and sickness one is another kind of big chunk of money, but that is all about speaking to the energies and
See, I have goosebumps again.
yeah, it's really, really deep. So, and it was not on my plan to take any of those because when they came around and were offered, you know, over the last 3 years, I was like, yeah, now that's not my thing. That's not my path. That's not my, and all of a sudden, like, you know, in the last few months, my guys have been like, ding, 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 it's your path now. I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
To make this even deeper and better as far as healing and things like that, right? And just for this, like it's again, it's so now it excites me. It's like following the breadcrumb trail of excitement. So now I'm super excited to take intuitive anatomy, right? Whereas before I wasn't.
Right.
So is her body still functioning in survival mode in any areas of her life, even though intellectually she knows she's always taking care of? Oops, question mark. Is there any that energy still being held on a cellular level in her? And if yes, are you able to pull that belief or trauma of being in of survival being held in her body, and tell us what that looks like as you pull that. And then intellectually, you know what it's like to be taken care of. I do too. Intellectually, I know what it's like to be taken care of. But are there any downloads or activations you could give her in order to make it a part of who, all caps, who she is, to know that she is always taken care of? How's that sound?
Nice. Yeah.
I love that. I want that too. When you give that to her, give that to me, okay?
Yeah, right.
Give a healing, get a healing.
Yeah, nice.
That's the Boulder Psychic Institute saying, give a healing, get a healing. So like last night I had this amazing session and she was getting all this amazing healing. And I'm like, I want that too right now, higher self. Thank you. Give a healing, get a healing.
Nice.
Okay, so what other questions did you have on your list?
I don't think there was any more. Let me just, where is that notes? Where are you? Okay. I think we covered them. So what was my car accident for? Oh, the other part was, have I been here before and where am I from?
Ah, okay. Has she incarnated on Earth before? If yes, is she a frequent flyer? That just came to my mind.
Awesome.
And
Where's my
place does she, what place in the multiverse does she consider home? How about that? And then whatever questions come up as a result of that.
Sure, that's awesome.
So yeah, so this whole thing with the what is
Metaverse?
metaverse? The whole thing with that, my guides told me, is to find yet another distraction for people to be outward focused instead of inward focused, because we have access to the multiverse when we go inside, right?
Yeah. It was automatic. When I saw that, I was like, wow, so much programming, like off the charts programming. It is so clear.
Yeah, they will literally capture you to the point where you won't go inside anymore. You'll be having such an amazing time in the metaverse that why would you need to go to a multiverse? Like that requires work and digging and healing beliefs and healing yourself. And it's just easier not to do that stuff, right? It's just easier to be distracted.
Right.
So that's what my guides were really clear with me, is don't touch it and teach your kids about this.
No.
Because that is going to be the downfall of them ever being able to become enlightened. They will not attain enlightenment. And then they're the ones they're going to get to the afterlife, right? Where we have the life review and all that and go, shoot.
Right.
Dang.
Yeah.
Like I just wasted a life.
And now I gotta
literally
go back
nothing.
again. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I got to go back again.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to teach my kids how to get off this wheel of reincarnation, not stay on it. You want to stay on it? Oh, just keep going to the metaverse. You'll stay on here.
Yeah.
Right? Keep being part of that AI. You'll stay on here. Yeah, no. Who wants to come back? Oh, not me. Okay. So any final messages for her before we end this session? And then the very last question always is, if she takes all of the information from this session and incorporates it in her life, how will her life be different compared to what it would have been like had she not done this session?
Cool. That's a great question.
Yeah, I love that one. Yay. Okay. So I'm going to stop the recording, and because in so many videos I've given people coaching on, and I don't have to give you probably much of anything, but I want to just say my little spiel so we know it. So I'm going to stop the recording now for anyone watching and invite you to join us for part 2, which is the actual hypnosis session, to see what her higher self has to say about all of these things.